of phantoms and monsters. They exist among us, and sometimes they win. Even the devil was an angel once. The world has its own rules, and these rules are not human. Some of us seek answers to the origin and existence of cryptids and the unexplained. Join us as we venture beyond the known and accepted boundaries. Welcome to our nightmare. I think you're going to like it.
Hey folks, good evening, and welcome to Phantoms Monsters Personal Reports, where I narrate and discuss some of the cryptid and unexplained sightings and encounters submitted to Phantoms of Monsters and the Phantoms of Monsters Fortean Research team. So thanks for joining me. Phantoms of Monsters radio channel is made possible by you clicking the subscribe and like buttons, and also by sharing our programming. Super chat and super thanks donations are appreciated. And you can click the dollar icon below the chat box to access those. And the Buy Me a Coffee link is also shown in the description. So thanks for your consideration. Now, please remember to set your notifications so that you receive word that a new presentation will be live. So also make sure you set the bell icon as well. I know there have been some questions about getting your notifications, and I have been checking up with YouTube and Google about that. I don't know what's going on. I do know that only 10% of the subscribers do have the notification set. Many folks have been going back and clicking the notification button off and back on, and it seems to work sometimes. You may want to try that. So anyway, now if you're in the chat and you have a question, please use all caps. I'll try to get to each and every one after the presentation. I will let you know when I'm on the last presentation so you can start posting questions so I don't miss any of them. So tonight, there is a distinct group of human-like entities that are part of the ufology lore and for the most part associated with people who experience UFO and otherworldly close encounters. But that's not the only time they show up. These are the Men in Black, or the MIB, and these entities usually show up unannounced at an experiencer's home seeking information about an incident. The presence of these Men in Black became widely known during the reported UFO activity and the Mothman encounters in the Point Pleasant, West Virginia area in the late 1960s, more so after the Silver Bridge collapsed in 67. The journalist and ufologist John A. Keel began writing about the Men in Black after they made themselves known to the residents of the town. The descriptions of these MIB were somewhat consistent: pale or olive-colored skin, monotone voice, no emotion or expression, dressed in black suits and fedora, and usually driving a large black sedan. They were usually two of these MIB traveling together. However, the most disconcerting aspect of their presence occurred after they conducted the brief interview. They would warn the witness in no uncertain terms not to discuss or report what they had observed. The message was clear: keep your mouth shut. And people still report these presences today. Most experiencers and investigators just don't know what to make of the MIB. Are they quasi-government agents? How do they know who to contact? In most instances, they appear not long after the encounter and before a report is ever made. They truly are an enigma, but I believe that there's another explanation for their presence, namely that the Men in Black are an alien cover-up or cleanup crew who are used to cover up any problematic sightings or encounters. So what do you think the Men in Black are? Just maintain an open mind and formulate your theories about this. And I'll present the reports in detail and attempt to answer any of your questions in the chat room. So, the first report. Hello, I had an extremely frightening experience not long ago. I had no idea what was going on, but when I happened to run across a description of the MIB, which I had never seen, heard about, or except for passing references to the Will Smith movie, I suddenly realized this is an extremely like what I experienced. My mouth dropped open at the similarity. What happened was, I used to be a postal delivery person in Washington, D.C. Now, one of the buildings I delivered mail to on my route was a huge building. One day I paused to eat an apple outside the building, and not seeing a trash can anywhere, I just threw the core on the ground. When I walked into the building to deliver the mail, I was angrily confronted by the head security guy. He asked me why I was littering. I was a little taken back and asked him how he knew I had thrown the apple core on the ground. He told me that these whole premises are under video surveillance, and including not only all sides of the building, but even the grassy areas around it. It was then that I realized this building was unusually at tight security. Even when I went inside to deposit the mail room was open to me, but the rest of the building was inaccessible. I could only go into the mail room, deposit the mail, and leave. I had to ring a buzzer to be let in the building each time I delivered. Now, anyway, a few weeks later, I was on my way to deliver the mail as usual to the building. And as I was nearing the building, I saw three figures crossing the street on their way towards the building. At first glance, I thought they were normal. But as I looked closer, I was shocked at how strange they were. They were extremely thin, and they didn't walk by putting one leg in front of the other, but sort of waddled by moving their whole bodies from side to side, lifting one foot off the ground, then the other foot in a sort of whole body side to side waddle. It's hard to explain what I mean, but it was not the way any normal person would walk unless they were unable to move any joint in their leg. But as strange as it was, this was not what frightened me. What frightened me was that they were thin. It was like they were as flat as a set of clothes that had just been ironed. Their faces and bodies were entirely flat, no contours. The nose did not jut out, nothing. And they were also extremely thin. The best I could describe it is you saw a suit hanging from a clothes hanger that would be about the same thickness. It was like no thickness at all, just clothes hanging from a hanger. All three were dressed in black suits, and they all wore black sunglasses. Now, I saw them walk up, ring the buzzer, and be let in the building. I was scared as I had just been about to enter that very same building. I wasn't sure what to do, but I kind of steeled myself and slowly forced myself to ring the buzzer and enter the building, figuring, hey, I might imagine this. In any case, I should force myself to go through my routine until I can, think this thing out. So when I entered the main room, there were like 10 men standing there just looking at me. It was really intimidating. They asked me if I had seen anything. I was kind of speechless for a second, not knowing how to respond. And then one of them walked right up to me from the side and from slightly behind me. I could tell it was one of the same types of things that I had seen crossing the street. It walked right up to me, and I was too afraid to turn my head to the side and look at it. I am very scared just typing this right now, remembering it. It didn't say anything. It just got right close to me, and I had a feeling of a fear that was so intense. I felt as if my heart had just frozen and was going to fall out of my body onto the ground. Again, they asked me, did you see anything? What did you see? I just shook my head and stammered. No, I didn't see anything. Unless they were all retarded, there is no way they could have noticed my extreme fright. I thought they might hold me there and not let me go, but finally they said, okay, leave now. The MIB that was to my side and a little behind me kind of took a step back to make way. And I had to steel myself to walk past it on the way to the door, and I was out of the building. It's the bravest thing I've ever done in my life. Now, at the time, I had never heard the MIB. I had no idea what this thing was or what the government was doing. All I knew was that I was dealing with something far more powerful than me. I thought maybe it was some new type of robot and the government was doing test runs on them. But why would they be done in broad daylight? I still didn't understand. To give you an understanding of how frightened I was, the first thought that came to my mind was that I needed to leave the country, to find some way to get the hell out of the country and go somewhere else. But then it occurred to me that if I started to act strangely, it might get suspicious and kill me or something. I realized the best thing I could do is to act normal as possible and pretend nothing had happened. So later the next week, my supervisor at the post office told me that I had been suddenly reassigned from my old route to a new one, something that was unexpected. He asked me if I had encountered any problems on the route. I think he even may have been a little confused as to why I was being reassigned. But I said I had no problems, and I was very quiet about it. So eventually I got reassigned. After what I thought was an appropriate amount of time continuing to work at the post office, I quit my job and I now work at an airport. I'm telling this story now because 5 years from now, I need to get this off my chest. I doubt they will ever come after me now, but if they do, I can't avoid my fate. I've never seen any sort of alien or any sort of unusual life event of any other kind, nor do I believe there's such a thing as devil or demons or anything related. So I really don't know what to believe now. There is no doubt whatsoever the building was under the control of the government with normal human beings. I still think it was some sort of cyborg experience, and on occasion I still am tempted just to leave the country and to get away from all of this. Now, it's interesting when I received that. This is not the only time that I've read of an MIB described as thin and having a strange side-to-side gait. I went through some notes at the time and found an incident that occurred in the early 1990s when I lived in Baltimore. There had been an automobile accident on I-95 not far from downtown near Washington Boulevard exit, where a witness described a similar-looking person, thin, dressed in black suit, fedora, and sunglasses, who waddled back and forth like a penguin away from a black Crown Victoria that was stopped near the scene. Now, this person got to the guardrail and hopped over it with ease and disappeared. The local news didn't make note of this person, though it was reported in the local city paper a week after the incident. I searched for other references to the incident, but I was never successful. So that's kind of an unusual one, not something you normally hear about the Men in Black, but I figured I'd put it out there. Very interesting. Anyway, this other email I received was, "Hi, Phantoms and Monsters. I found your blog while hunting for information on UFO investigations. A co-worker told me that some UFO investigators may be alien beings hired by the government and the military. Is this true? I asked because something happened to me in early May 2014 that I cannot explain. I lived near Muskegon, Michigan, close to Lake Michigan shoreline. Over the past 2 years, several neighbors and ourselves have witnessed many weird lights above the lake. During the last week of April, there were several strings of red and white lights moving north above the lake. I noticed the lights twice on different nights. The man across the street contacted the UFO group. I don't know the name of the group. He told my son that he had also seen unusual people in his backyard from his bedroom window late one night. Now, when he went out to confront them, they were gone. This happened just 2 days after he filed a UFO report online. On 2 consecutive nights, my son and I saw spotlights shining from the shore of the lake. There was a field, a narrow road, and a berm between our house and the lake. It looked like the spotlights may have been mounted on vehicles. On both nights, they occurred around 11 p.m. and lasted for only a few minutes. Now, a few days later, May 4th, about 2 p.m., I was out in the backyard working in my garden. A man dressed in black military garb had entered through my back gate and walked towards me. I stopped what I was doing and waited for him to say something. He wore glasses that were tinted yellow, which stood out because everything else on him was black. He also wore a plain black cap with no insignia. Now, when he got close, he looked directly at me without expression and asked if I had noticed lights over the lake. I explained what we had seen and some other information I thought would help. He wrote down everything in a small notebook, rarely saying a word other than anything else. And when I finished, he asked if I had reported the sightings. I told him the man across the street said he contacted the UFO group, then asked, "But did you contact anyone?" I said, "No." Then I asked him what group he was with. He just looked at me and said, "Thank you for cooperating." That was very weird because I felt that there was something not right about this man. I guess it was intuition, but I was creeped out. So on Saturday, May 9th, around 10:30 p.m., there were more lights coming from the lake shoreline. This time, I decided to walk over and see what was going on. My son, who was 17, came with me. He was just as curious as me. We walked through the yard, across the field, then over the berm to the shoreline. There were 5 black Land Rover-like vehicles about 100 yards south along the shoreline. There was also a dozen or more men in black garb moving about. As soon as one of these men noticed us, he shouted, "There!" and came running towards us. He had a 3-foot-long, light-colored baton with a yellow light on the end. 2 other men came running towards us as well. Now, the man with the baton yelled, "You must leave at once. This is a national security operation." My son asked who they were, but never received an answer to the question. Now, one of the other men, who I believe was a superior, said, "You must leave the area immediately. Go back to your home. A representative will contact you in a day or 2. We agreed and promptly left and went home. Now, I have not been contacted by anyone since that night. My son and I went back to the shoreline, looked around, hoping that we could find something to tell us or help us understand what had happened, and there was nothing. I believe that they may have discovered something of importance just by the way they reacted to us. Is there any way of finding out who these guys were and what they were doing? Well, I contacted the witness by email and explained that this type of activity is not uncommon after specific sightings, especially those sightings that occur several times. Now, I suppose you could call this an MIB scenario. The baton with the light is interesting. It's the first time I had heard of that type of equipment being presented during an encounter, and quite frankly, I don't think I've heard anything similar since. After many years, I still have not received any further information pertaining to these incidents. Now, I do know that the witness did file a FOIA request, but if they ever heard anything, they didn't tell me about it. Maybe they were just told to shut up. I don't know. So this next account. My MIB encounter happened in 2011, and this was something that I'll never forget. First, a bit of backstory. Prior to the MIB incident, I went on a camping trip to Joshua Tree National Park, California, with a few friends. On our last night there, we were looking at the stars in front of our campfire. That's when I noticed a couple of glowing blue UFOs in the sky, in the night sky, going at amazing speeds. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and my friends were equally amazed and mystified. I tried to take a photo with my flip phone, but the UFOs moved too fast for me to get a clear image of them. Now, on our drive back home, we talked about what we had seen and were really excited about it. Not long after, I noticed a black car following me from a distance. I switched lanes to make sure the black car was in fact following me, and sure enough, wherever I went, the car followed. Then, when I glanced in my rearview mirror again, the car suddenly disappeared without a trace, which was unsettling. Now, the MIB encounter. The next day, after running a few errands, I started driving home, and when I arrived at my house, I saw a black Cadillac parked in my driveway. I tried to convince myself that this wasn't the same black car following me a day ago, but my gut feeling told me otherwise. So when I got out of the car, two men in matching black suits, light gray dress shirts, black ties, and black fedoras approached me and asked if they could ask me a few questions about what I had witnessed the night before. I asked them who they were and to see some credentials. They claimed they worked for a division of the U.S. Air Force. Their appearance looked what I can only describe as plastic and emotionless, and they both had pale olive skin tones. They spoke in a raspy, monotone voice, and their speech was quite precise, sounding almost synthetic. They also had a very cold and intense gaze. Now, some of the questions they asked were, can you describe what you saw that night? What do you think you saw? Did you take any photos of what you witnessed? Were there others who might have had recording devices or cameras? Do you know if anyone recorded the incident? Have you spoken about this incident with anyone else who wasn't present with you that night? Did you find any unusual debris at the location where you were that night? Would you be withholding any important information from us? Of course, I didn't answer most of their questions honestly, and I did withhold a lot of information as to what I saw and who I was with. They ended their questioning by strongly advising me to refrain from talking about what I'd witnessed with anyone and to forget the incident ever happened. They also strongly implied that they would be keeping an eye on me if I decided to ignore their demands. Now, after the encounter, I had this constant ominous feeling for a while and always looked over my shoulder wherever I went. I didn't know who these men were or how they had knowledge of what I saw that night, but I believe that they were the men in black. Since that encounter, I've been really hesitant and careful about who I share my experience with, but I finally decided to share it here. Now, during the years following that incident, I only had a couple UFO sightings at night on separate occasions, but I haven't had any more visits from the odd men dressed in black. Not yet, anyway. Very similar account from MIB experience, or over the years, this scenario hasn't really deviated that much. The biggest difference is the appearance of the MIB here, usually dressed in black athletic or casual attire. I don't believe that the MIB are part of a military group on Earth. And in my opinion, I believe they're some type of cleanup crew or alien or otherworldly. After all these incidents I've received over the years, I've kind of come to that conclusion. And I haven't been steered otherwise. So I think there's a good possibility that they may be some type of alien being. So this next account happened in Boston, Massachusetts. It was June 12th, 2022 at 2:00 a.m. And they write, a couple weeks ago, my sister and her boyfriend were surfing the internet, watching videos on astronauts seeing UFOs and other theories surrounding aliens, such as plane pilots encountering UFOs. My sister is a huge believer in anything paranormal, and that must be where I got it from. About 4 nights ago, my sister and a boyfriend went out to smoke a cigarette about 2:30 a.m. They were looking up at the moon and talking about how those astronauts in the videos they watched weeks ago really had no reason to lie about UFO sightings and how crazy it must have been for them. Within less than 5 seconds of talking about that out loud, they were peering up in the sky and saw an orb like bright light was so bright the light illuminated their faces as if in the presence of fireworks. It was going upwards in the sky, not in a completely straight path, but was swerving a little and going upwards. There were a few spark-like elements coming from the bottom of the craft, and the craft itself was visible for about 3 seconds before it completely disappeared. The craft was completely silent and appeared close, way too close to be a plane or some type of shooting star. They thought it could have been a comet, but also too close to be for that, or a meteor landing on Earth, but it was traveling upward and disappeared. Now, my sister said the size of it was about the size of a street light from the ground's point of view, but she couldn't make out the shape of the object because it was so bright. It was close to them, and they narrowed it down to being a UFO. Now, both she and her boyfriend saw it, which means one of them wasn't hallucinating. They were scared, considering the fact that just seconds before the UFO appeared, they were talking about alien encounters. It felt as if whatever it was heard them talking about that and wanted to prove their existence. It was more than just a coincidence. They went inside afterwards, stunned, not believing or knowing exactly what they saw. My sister admitted to me that she thought it was cool to finally see a UFO for the first time. After about 45 minutes, her boyfriend wanted another cigarette, and as hesitant as they were to go back outside, they went anyway. After about 2 minutes of being outside the second time, a black sedan SUV pulled up across the street, seemingly out of nowhere with absolutely no sound. A man in all black came out and opened the trunk of the SUV, turned around, and began to stare at them. They could tell he was dressed in black but couldn't make out his face. Within seconds of this, she and her boyfriend noticed 2 other men in black standing at the end of the street, one house down from where they lived, kind of swaying back and forth as if they were trying to make out who or what they were. It seemed as if they were more intrigued by seeing my sister and her boyfriend than they were to see the men in black. My sister described them as also wearing all black attire and couldn't see their faces or even their skin color, despite being only one house down from where they were standing. They were all blurred out and did not have distinct facial features. It was also almost 3:30 a.m. at this point. The MIB weren't talking to each other, smoking, or doing anything that made sense. They were just staring at them, as was the guy with the trunk open to his SUV across the street. She said it gave her a very fearful, ominous impression. Now, as soon as this happened, she grabbed her boyfriend's hand and sprinted inside the house, fearing that if she wasn't physically touching him, he could have mysteriously disappeared somewhere behind her as they were running. She has not been able to sleep, turn off any lights, and doesn't feel safe being alone. She tried contacting the authorities, but they basically told her they were only take crime reports and not UFO reports. Now, my sister said this is the scariest thing she had ever encountered. And the UFO sighting was scary enough, but the strange MIB who just so happened to be staring at them so late in the middle of the night was even more terrifying. People had asked her why she didn't record the men in her phone, and she said that she was way too scared to stick around to find out what would happen if she did. What was the strange UFO she spotted in the sky with her boyfriend? And who were the men in black who happened to appear in the same area within less than an hour? If anyone has any similar experience or encounter, please let us know. And I did send some encounters to her that I had received. This next account. Hi, Lon. I've been meaning to send you this story for some time now. It was one of the strangest things in my friend's life. This event took place approximately 19 years ago, around 1998. So I got this report, 5 years ago or so. A friend and I were on our way back to my place at around 2 to 2:30 a.m. one night coming from Exton, Pennsylvania. We stopped at the Turkey Hill store at Route 323 east of the town of Honeybrook to grab something to drink. I pulled into the parking space on the left side of the store in front of the window. I got out of my car. My friend remained in the car. Now, passing the window, I noticed a man leaning down on the windowsill inside. He was wearing a very wide brimmed black hat and had his head down so I couldn't see his face, just the hat. Now, entering the store, I noticed the male clerk behind the counter with his back to me. I retrieved the drinks and went in for it and proceeded to the counter. As I did, I observed a man leaning down in the sill, head still down, wearing all black and a black trench coat. Paying for my items, I noticed the clerk acting as if the man wasn't even there, but slightly spooked at the same time, being very short with words and very precise in his actions. So, leaving the store, I intended to relay this to my friend waiting in my car. As I got back in, she was looking at the man leaning down in the sill and asked if I see this guy. I said yes, and told her a little about being inside the store as I put the car in reverse to leave. At that point, the man began to raise his head. He faced directly out at us, but oddly, as my friend yelled, "He has no face." It was like it was blurred out, like they do on TV. Needless to say, we were both freaked out a little, and I tore off out of the lot and headed east toward my home, which was only a quarter of a mile or so from the store. My friend and I were silent at that point as I pulled into the entrance of my mobile home park. I stopped the car there and told my friend we were going back as I suspected the clerk may be getting robbed by the man in the window. We held it out of the entrance and went west back to the store. Now, I decided to make a right on a back road across from the store by a local store or deli and told my friend to look over inside the store to see what she could. The man was no longer crouching in the sill, but couldn't be seen inside anywhere either. I proceeded a short distance down this road to turn around when we witnessed a female wearing all black walking towards us in the middle of the opposite lane. After passing her, I immediately turned around to head back toward the store and asked the female if she needed help. Reaching the stop sign at the intersection, we noticed she was gone. We then turned our attention back to the store across the street, decided to go right, heading west on 322. Slowly past the store when we noticed the man was now outside, crouching by the payphone, head down to the right of the store, and a blacked out Lincoln Continental or town car parked to his left we had noticed before. The clerk was inside, standing behind the counter at this point, staring straight out at the windows and perfectly still. I turned around a short distance down at the next home park with a small diner in front and proceeded east again. Now, this time we pulled back into the parking lot and the car and the clerk still in the same positions as previous. The man began raising his head again, and again I tore off out of the lot, heading east on 322 towards my home. About 300 feet from the lot, leaving the lot, I had to swerve to miss another man wearing all black walking towards us in the center of our lane, going west towards the store. Both mine and my friend's heart were pounding at this point, and again I had to turn around and go back, wondering what the hell was going on. As we returned back to the store and pulled into the lot, we noticed that the walking man was gone. The crouching man with no face was gone, and the car was gone. And the male clerk from the inside was now a female clerk moving around doing work inside the store. At no time did we witness any other patrons in the store, nor anyone else in the store, nor any other vehicles in the lot during any of this. So after finally returning home and talking for a bit, my friend calmed down enough to drive herself home. Passing the store after leaving, the same female clerk was still the only person there. My friend's car subsequently broke down on her short distance away. She blew a transmission, and she did make it home safe the night, though. I frequented the same store, and days later saw the same male clerk working there, where I noticed his demeanor be totally different than that previous night. Neither of us at the time thought we had witnessed men in black. It wasn't until years later, while researching stories of MIB encounters, that it hit me. We have both seen unidentified craft periodically throughout our lives, and she and her mother have witnessed a being that didn't seem of this earth. We keep in contact to this day because of the landed unidentified craft my mother witnessed in the late 1970s when I was about 8 or 9. I researched events involving UFOs throughout my life and attempt to investigate sightings now. Now, that area, Exton, Pennsylvania, is the eastern part of the state. It is an area where there have been a lot of UFO sightings. Now, I can't necessarily say there have been a lot of MIB sightings, but there have been a lot of UFO sightings and some things that people say are aliens. So I don't know. I don't know what they saw. Did they see men in black? It's possible, I guess. I don't know if there had been a lot of activity around there and they showed up for whatever reason. I don't know. So here's the last account. And if you have questions, please use caps and post them into the chat. The witness states, I knew a dude who worked with the Experimental Mines U.S. Bureau of Mines. It's an interesting place. 12-foot double row barbed wire fence all around, and it's pretty good size. It's in South Park Township, Pennsylvania, just south of Pittsburgh. Anyway, there were 4 of us riding around aimlessly in one of the guys' cars. We were kids, 19 or 20, all off work, driving around, drinking beer, smoking joints, just having fun. We drove past the mines and saw that one gate was open. So we turned around and decided to check it out. There was no guard in the booth. We said, screw it, let's go in and see if we can find our buddy and smoke him up. So we drove right on in and up the hill, around the bend, and a dark blue Caprice Classic cut us off and stopped. A white Caprice Classic pulled up behind us. 2 seemingly identical men wearing black suits with black ties and black sunglasses approached the car. I don't remember seeing which one got out of which car. They were just there, one on either side of us. Now, the one on the left said, state your business here. We said we saw the gate was standing open. Our buddy works here, so we went in to see if we could find him. He said, you have no business here. This is a restricted area. We repeated that the gate was standing wide open and added that there was no guard there. He said, you will follow me. He then walked very quickly to the car in front of us. The one on the right of us never said a word. He got in the car behind us. We followed the blue car with the white car behind us around a loop road and back out through the same still open gate. The blue car pulled over next to the empty guard booth. We hung a light and beat feet. The white car followed us to the next intersection, maybe a half a mile, and turned off. We hauled out of there. Never saw that gate open again after that. Scared the crap out of us. It's a creepy looking place in the first place, with fences that look like a prison complex. Why would they need such intense security at a coal mine? This was long before 9/11. This was like 1983 or 1984. Our buddy was a janitor. He didn't have access to the whole complex, just the offices he took care of. He said there was a lot of weird stuff going on there. Mean-looking men and women with sunglasses on indoors, guarded buildings, army trucks, Chevy Caprice Classics, all either black, dark blue, or white. Now, he was particularly creeped out by one woman there. He said he didn't want to clean her office. Another guy had to do it. This is going by what he said. I have no firsthand knowledge of it. I can tell you that the whole surrounding area has a weird vibe to it. I used to hunt and ride dirt bikes, four-wheelers, and just joyride around whatever vehicle I had. There are neighborhoods bordering the complex on 3 sides and the woods across the road. Now, this wasn't the first paranormal event in my life, nor was it the last, but I shared this one with 3 other people. I haven't spoken to any of them in years. I don't even know where they live now, but I know they saw the same thing I did. Now, at the time, and I checked into this, the complex was made up of labs and office space as part of the National Energy Technology Laboratory Network. So it's government. It's also home to 3 major agencies, including the Federal Energy Technology Center, which is the U.S. Department of Energy, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, and the Mine Safety and Health Administration. Before that time, I had no idea what was going on at the location other than early CDC, NIOSH mine research. Now, I'm not familiar with the South Park Township area south of Pittsburgh. I don't know exactly what was going on there, but it just seemed like a really weird story. So, since they were dressed in black and acted strange, I figured I'd say something about it. So, questions. First of all, I want to thank Wind Eyes for the donation, Savage Grammy for her donation, and Robo 1776. Very much appreciated. Now, let's see if we can find some questions here. Okay. Bear Zip. Hello, how tall was the being you said in Maryland? Feral or Bigfoot, do you think? Thank you. Which being are you talking about? I mean, I've seen the one that I saw, or the Bigfoot that I saw. Oh, it was about 8.5 foot, pretty good size. Of course, it shocked me. So I don't know. I'm just going by what I remember, but I think it was probably about 8 foot. Brian McGlade. Hello, Lon. Any reports of MIB in Chicago from Mothman witnesses? You know, we had one incident, and I've talked about it, where a school teacher had an encounter with some beings and a winged being and two other beings at a local park near her house. And a couple of days afterwards, and after she had contacted Manuel about it, she had an encounter at work with an individual who asked her if she had reported her encounter at the park. Now, he wasn't dressed in black. She didn't know who he was. It was one question, and then he was suddenly gone. But it was in the cafeteria, so there were other people around. So as far as any other outside people talking about this, that's the only one. I'm like you. I'm kind of surprised that is the only one, if this is what's been going on. But yeah, I can say that there was an MIB-like encounter with a witness. Jose Sanchez, I've heard of MIB and that the Hat Man may be related somehow. Have you ever heard of this? Nah, I don't think so. The MIB seem to be very corporeal, you know, of flesh and blood. You know, the Hat Man is like a spirit being, though I don't think it is a spirit being. It's just an entity. But I don't think they're related. They may look similar, but I don't think they're related at all. John Paulo, what happens when someone tries to take a picture of MIB? I have no idea. I haven't heard of any of that occurring, to be honest with you. Any other questions? Hey, Peace, thanks for coming in. Oh, I appreciate your donation. Very much appreciated. Finally able to catch some of the live video. I appreciate your work, Lon. I know you put a lot of work and time into it. I absolutely appreciate that sentiment, and I hope you enjoy it. What we're here for. Any other questions, folks? Okay, so I want to thank each and all of you for watching and chatting. If you donated, truly appreciate it. Your support's what makes all this possible. So please like, subscribe, and share. If you do have a sighting or a report, you'd like to be considered for the personal reports show, just post it or send it to me at Lon Strickler, phantomsmonsters.com. We got another question. Robo 776. Any unique characteristics like smells, sounds they make? Not really, other than the physical appearance is about all we get. They do have a monotone voice from what most people state. Savage Graham, any Mothman updates other than what I reported on the site? We've had a few minor sightings, but nothing to really blow my socks off at this point. They seem to be waning a bit, but who knows? That you never know. This thing can pick up quickly at any time. Lon, hey, not UFO related. How do I get a hold of you? Just go to my email at Lon Strickler at phantomsmonsters.com. Have there been, Jose Sanchez, have there been any UFO Bigfoot cases questioning by the MIB? Not that I know of. It's usually always to do with UFO or entity sightings. Nothing to do with any type of cryptids. Okay, folks. Well, I appreciate you coming in tonight. And if you do have something to offer me, please contact me again at lonstricklerfansmonsters.com. So have a nice weekend and hope to see you next week. Take care.